Paul begins by acknowledging the Corinthians' concern. Now, concerning the things of which you wrote to me, it is good for a man to not touch a woman. While he recognizes the benefits of singleness, he also affirms the sanctity of marriage, emphasizing that sexual intimacy is a God-ordained protection against immorality. Nevertheless, because of sexual immorality, let each man have his own wife, and let each woman have her own husband. He instructs husbands and wives to fulfill their marital duties to each other, making it clear that neither has authority over their own body, but each belongs to the other. Mutual love and selfless giving are at the heart of a Christ-centered marriage. However, he allows for temporary abstinence for the sake of prayer and fasting, but warns against prolonged separation lest Satan tempt them due to a lack of self-control. Paul expresses his personal preference for singleness because it allows for undivided devotion to the Lord. For I wish that all men were even as I myself. However, he recognizes that not everyone has the same calling, and each should live as God has gifted them, whether in singleness or marriage. To the unmarried and widows, Paul advises that it is good to remain as they are, but if they lack self-control, they should marry rather than struggle with temptation. For it is better to marry than to burn with passion. Paul addresses married believers, instructing them not to seek divorce, as marriage is a lifelong commitment before God. However, for those who are married to unbelievers, he encourages them to remain in the marriage if the unbelieving spouse is willing. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Yet, if the unbeliever departs, the believer is not under bondage, as God has called his people to peace. Paul urges believers to remain in the condition in which they were called, whether circumcised or uncircumcised, slave or free, because what matters is keeping God's commandments. He reminds them, you were bought at a price. Do not become slaves of men. Paul then turns his focus to those who are unmarried, urging them to consider remaining single due to the present distress. He acknowledges that marriage is good, but those who marry will face worldly difficulties that single believers avoid. His ultimate concern is devotion to the Lord without distraction. But I want you to be without care. He who is unmarried cares for the things of the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he who is married cares about the things of the world, how he may please his wife. Paul reassures that neither choice, marriage or singleness, is sinful, but those who choose singleness have the freedom to focus entirely on serving God. He concludes with guidance for widows, stating that they are free to remarry, but only in the Lord. However, he again stresses that remaining single allows them greater spiritual devotion to Christ.